everyone, my name is Aspen and I am your host for Forestry Talks, a podcast that explores all things forestry in Alberta. I'm here today at the beautiful Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge in Jasper, Alberta, and we're here to celebrate our annual general meeting and conference for the Alberta Forest Products Association. I've got some great guests that are going to join me for the show this week. You're going to love them. I can't wait to share them with you. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Forestry Talks here at the beautiful Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. I am so excited to be joined by Shenandoah Johns. She is the Chief Environment and Sustainability Officer at West Fraser. Shenandoah, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Aspen.
Yeah, how are you doing today? How are you enjoying the conference so far?
Well, it's stunning. I've lived in Alberta for 25 years, and if you can believe it, this is the first time I've been at Jasper Park Lodge.
Are you kidding?
Which is sinful almost, yes. Spectacularly beautiful and a perfect fall day.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm so glad to have you here with us. And I'm so excited to get into the work that you do because sustainability is one of those really incredible topics. But first, let's start with Chief Environment and Sustainability Officer. What does that mean?
It is more title, I think, than I ever aspired to have. But to be honest, it's the work I wanted to do ending my career. So yeah. I think what it means to me is doing work that matches my values. Mm-hmm. And so environment and sustainability are your values? Definitely some of my core values, yes. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. So how do your values interact with the work that you do on a daily basis? Well, I think, first of all, I'm a mom of 4. And I've had lots of opportunity. I actually worked in oil and gas for over 20 years before I joined forestry. And as I was staring down sort of the latter part of my career, it became so important to me that I went into a renewable business and did work that was going to leave this earth better for my children and for that generation. Yeah, that's wonderful. And with your time and your experience in oil and gas, was there a lot of surprises when you moved to the forest industry? Is there some synergies? Like, how was that transfer for you? Well, I think there's a lot more similarity than people might think when you work in a manufacturing and natural resources sector. A lot of people think they were night and day different, but didn't take me terribly long to get up to speed. But I do find strategically and from a business plan perspective, forestry far more inspiring than working in fossil fuels. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful to hear. And so I want to know what gets you excited about sustainability and forestry and some of the future opportunities that exist. There's so much to talk about in terms of what gets me excited. But I think, first of all, one of the things I noticed right away was the people and how refreshingly down to earth the people are in this industry and actually how much they care. You can talk a lot about the environment and sustainability. It's a great thing to make, lofty commitments and talk. I say a lot of big talk right now, especially, is very popular, but the people are on the ground in this industry doing things every day to make this planet better and to make sure that we have forests for a long, long time, many generations into the future. And I think having that kind of pragmatic, practical experience makes our industry doers on tricky issues such as climate change or biodiversity loss. I love that so much. And what that kind of makes me think of or wants to explore with you is West Fraser is a big company, and a lot of stuff in the sustainability space is more so at that macro level. So what does that look like for you when you're trying to, I guess, generate buy-in across all of the different operations across Canada and in the States, getting the sustainability values all the way to the boots on the ground? You touched on a lot of that is already really ingrained into all of us as part of the forest industry. But what does that look like for you, taking like a macro topic like sustainability and bringing it? I think that sustainability and the way it's used in society right now. It's like learning a new language.
Yeah.
So sustainability, as a small s, sustainability, is intuitive to many people working in the forestry sector. So my job, I think, is like a translator. So I need to understand at a macro level the trends and the issues, the hot topics that are being dealt with at a global scale, and then come back to the company and in simple speak, because there's, there's so many acronyms and standards
the alphabet
and
soup.
voluntary. Yeah, that's what people call it, right? Alphabet soup is actually be able to connect it to those things that they already understand and know about. And so I kind of think of my job as a translator, because at the end of the day, if you want to be sustainable, if you want to be a leader, you actually need to embed the values of sustainability at every level in the organization. It's not, a capital, a C-suite kind of job. That's not the work that sustainability is all about. It's about the people who wake up in the morning and think, what am I going to do today at work? How are my values personally aligning with the company values for how we want to leave this place for our children?
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I want to talk a little bit about, so, you mentioned your children and having those values and creating that positive future for the future children, for future generations. A big part about sustainability is empowering the workforce. And I think a big opportunity there is empowering young females in the workforce. So I'm wondering, is there a time that you were particularly inspired as a female leader, or any advice that you would share for young women that are getting into sustainability?
I think my first piece of advice, and something I tell my children all the time, is you need to do work you love.
Yeah.
And that's not focused or specific advice to sustainability. I do think that the younger generation, younger than me, cares a whole lot about, what we're doing about climate change, what we're doing about, to prevent the collapse of biodiversity, what we're doing to advance people that are not well represented. You asked me about moments I had that were inspiring, and I would say they weren't big, grand light bulb moments. The moments that I guess have put the most wind in my sails, as whether it's an employee or a leader, is when I can see that the work I get to work alongside others impacts them and impacts the community around us. And I think that's the most important thing about the work you seek. For me, it's in the sustainability field, but are you able to get up, go to work, and make a difference? Nobody wants to be, I don't think anybody really wants to be punching a time clock. I could be wrong, but I think
you're right.
People want to get up, and if it's as small as making somebody smile or helping them understand their value, I think that's the most important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm wondering if maybe we can break down this idea of sustainability a little bit and make it more practical for people, because we're talking about this, what can be a very broad subject. So can you maybe share with us some examples of what sustainability looks like at West Fraser?
I'll answer that in two parts,
Sure.
Aspen. So the first, what is sustainability? I think Indigenous nations have it right. There's this philosophy of every decision you make needs to stand the test of 7 generations of time. And so I think whether it's environmental principles or ethical governance or how you interact with people and communities, are you making a decision that stands up over 7 generations, which is hundreds of years? And so that's how simple it is. And I think very often people are making short-term decisions or weighing the benefit, again, a cost-benefit analysis, which I understand. I get economics, but you need to run it over longer periods of time. Now, what does it mean at West Fraser? I said already that a lot of sustainability values how we make sure that we have a safe working environment. And by safe, I don't just mean physical safety, I mean psychologically safe workplace for people, for our contractors, that we're investing in the communities. And our environmental stewardship are all intuitive. But I think sometimes that companies, including West Fraser, but I think this is a broader issue, let perfection be the enemy of good.
Right.
And so, for us, what sustainability looks like is continuous improvement.
Yes.
We're not thinking, we're going to go away in a room, work on some things, come out with a perfect product, and we're done. Sustainability is not a project. I don't think, over the years, it's been called many things. And so, there were some, very international publications last year that were questioning ESG specifically and whether it was here to stay. And the truth is, I think sustainability has been around since time immemorial. People invest where their values are. And so, a couple decades ago, we called it social corporate responsibility. Now it's ESG. It's not going away, and it's not a project. So we're going to continuously improve. I think that's our commitment.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I'm wondering, because I know West Fraser, you recently released your second sustainability report. Is that right?
Well, we have had, we've released reports. We used to call them responsibility reports for the last decade or so. But I think the title officially, sustainability report, you're right, has been for 2 years now.
Yeah.
That's right.
So now with this lens, I guess over the last couple of years of really tracking some of those important metrics, what are some of the things that you've learned in this process?
Specific to West Fraser, or just from a...
Both, yeah.
I actually think corporations and governments and international agencies are over-rotating on sustainability reporting. I think they've made it so complicated that an average person doesn't actually know what to get out of it. And, I look at a lot of competitors' reports and reports of sustainability leaders, and you have reports that are getting into the hundreds and hundreds of pages. And, that's not something that my teenager is going to go read.
Right.
And
it's hardly something I want to go read.
Right. That's right. And so there's quite a juxtaposition with reporting right now, because I do think there's certainly a desire at West Fraser to be transparent about your performance and to talk about what matters to your key stakeholders in the communities that care about what you're doing. And I think there's a bit of an art to actually both be transparent and not pick and choose the statistics or the key performance indicators you talk about, but also tell your story in a very simple way and a humble way. I think humility has got to be part of the conversation. I don't know anybody that's perfect. Yeah. And if we're not always committed to just get better year over year, then, I think that it's all for naught. So,
yeah, I think. Go ahead.
That I would say that's one of my learnings, and it's one of the challenges, I think, in how we communicate to others. So you mentioned our last sustainability report. We actually are scaling the pages back to try and just to be disciplined about being simple. That doesn't mean we don't have scads of data in the back, etc. But we want to keep the messages simple. And I also think if you look at the change corporates are managing over the last, say, decade, sort of all the technology improvements and sort of the changing workforce, the amount of change companies are navigating is increasing exponentially. So I think it requires a lot of discipline for us to be focused on material and core priorities. And right now in the sustainability space, it's a little bit like a paintball game where everybody wants to talk, like hit everything and, color everything in multicolored paintballs. I don't think we can do that and be effective. And so I think trying to keep the message simple and be almost ruthlessly prioritized is an important part of driving your organization forward.
Yeah, and I think maybe something that brings to mind for me, because you talked about that humility, and for me that's also about authenticity. And so if you feel as a company pressured to cover all of the different topics, I mean, in reality, the position your company might be in right now, you might not actually be able to effectively move on all of those different subjects. And I think sometimes we hear a lot of controversy or comments about greenwashing. And so I love your comment about humility, and for me, it's about authenticity. When you're talking about sustainability and what your company is doing, it has to be authentic.
Absolutely. And I do worry, because if you focus on what you think your priorities are, if you're focused on wanting just to get continuously improve, there are going to be mistakes made. There are going to be commitments missed. As I said, it's not going to be perfect out of the gates. And I think what's hard for companies is that there's not often a lot of grace given for that. And so green washing is one outcome. Green hushing is another term that has come to the forefront now, because companies are nervous about making ambitious commitments. And so they might make them internally, but be afraid to talk about them because they want to swing for the fences. It's, my sports analogy for the day, but they're scared to let everyone know that they're doing that, because they don't want to be eviscerated should they fall short of the mark. And I think that's a danger, actually. For us, I guess, we're going to swing for the fences, I think, is our philosophy. We'll talk about it, and then we'll be humble if we have to tell everybody that, things changed and they didn't go quite as we expected. And my hope is, I haven't experienced this yet, but if we can be transparent along the way, authentic, that we're not that there will be a little bit of grace, as we're doing our best. Yeah.
Well, and that kind of comes back to your comment initially about how the idea of being perfect sometimes paralyzes people from action. And I think the action and the little steps along the way are really what's most important about that process.
It's really true.
Yeah. You're going to have to help me out on this one, because I read this in your sustainability report and now I'm trying to remember the title of it. But West Fraser recently signed, was it the UN Global Impact?
Oh, yeah. We became a member of the UN Global Compact.
Global Compact. There we go.
Right. So if you think about the UN SDGs, which are the Sustainability Development Goals, really when they were created for governments. So governments signed up, and which is where you need to start. You have the global powers, the governing powers, in agreement with these development goals. The next step is, you need corporates in the different countries to also sign up and be aligned. And so the UN Global Compact was created with a real vision of how to take those sort of government level goals and apply them across the corporates across the world. So that's what we signed up for.
Yeah. So more practical for industry.
More applicable to the work that we do, and I guess more provides more guidance specifically in terms of the impacts that the UN is looking for corporate citizens to make.
So why was it important for West Fraser to sign on to that?
Well, we are on a leadership journey for sustainability, and I think this might be a polarizing comment, but when I came into forestry, one of my observations was the industry for years has been very comfortable staying out of the limelight, likes to fly below the radar, and I think they've learned some hard lessons through some of the war in the woods, for example. So I understand. I understand that, but we can't be insular, and we need to look up and understand what sustainability leaders are doing across the world, not just within our industry.
Yeah.
So being part of the UN Global Compact is an important way for us to look in the mirror and to understand what we're doing, what the best practices, what the best companies out there are doing, and sort of sharpening the iron.
Yeah. Well, that's a very exciting step, and I look forward to seeing or hearing more about what comes out of that.
Thank you.
I have one last question for you before I let you go.
Okay.
I was wondering what advice you might have for companies that are just starting out on their sustainability journey.
Start. Don't fail to get out of the gates. And do not, I've said this already,
Yeah.
I think it's how I started this chat, Aspen, and how I'll end it is that don't let perfect be the enemy of good, and don't be paralyzed by take small steps. You don't have to, not everything has to be a home run. There's a second sports analogy.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Forestry Talks, a podcast that explores all things forestry in Alberta. We've got some more great guests lined up for our AGM this week. Stay tuned for more, and if you're curious to learn even more about forestry in Alberta, check out our website, loveabforest.ca. I'm your host, Aspen Dudzik, and I'll see you next time.
This series is proudly produced by the team at Road 55. Road 55 creates content that connects. For more information, check our website, www.road55.ca.